How to buy a HUD property. Again, as I mentioned, HUD is Housing and Urban Development. That is the federal government that owns this property, and they have a unique process for how you buy that property. So what you're going to need to know is you're going to need to understand that process. You're going to have to understand how they negotiate. You're going to have to understand how you bid, and you're going to have to understand that we use their process that is the same in all 50 states. So the first thing is that when you look at a HUD property, they have their very own unique website. It's called the HUD Home Store, and a lot of times you can find a lot of good information on that website. That website will provide you with what they call a PIR, or Property Inspection Report, and that's kind of like a pre-home inspection that HUD does. That'll tell you this is what HUD did for an inspection, this is what they know. But they're really good about saying it's as is, where is. And that's the most important thing you got to understand, because a lot of people have a hard time understanding what that means. It means it's as is, where is. So that means they never lived in the property, they don't want to hurt you, but you're buying it in its current condition with all of its good features and all of its challenging features. It also means that you're buying the property usually without the water turned on, because HUD, although they do have a process in which you can request the water to be turned on at your expense, unlike other bank owns where you would request it and the seller would turn the water on and off for you or the heat on and off for you, HUD doesn't do that. So if you're buying a HUD property, the first thing you need to know, or one of the many things you need to know, is that you're responsible to turn the utilities on and turn the utilities off before you even own the property. In order for you to get financing on the property, you need to have the utilities turned on. Most likely HUD isn't going to let you do that. So I wish they would just say no. So assume that they're going to say no, because if they did a pressure test on the water system or a pressure test on the heating system and it didn't hold pressure, they're not going to allow you to do it. Guess what, folks? Sold hundreds and thousands of these properties. They may have been winterized. They may have been winterized after a whole winter of not being winterized. So just because a property is winterized doesn't mean that it's going to hold pressure, doesn't mean that it's going to hold water. So what you want to do is you want to get an air test done on it, and then most of these properties you're going to have to get a unique type of financing. Well, most of these properties it's better if you can pay cash, but not everybody can do that. I understand that. So understanding the financing piece and understanding that you won't have water and heat on, you need to do what they call a 203K loan. And what a 203K loan is it's actually an FHA loan in which you borrow money and you say, okay, I'm going to buy this house for $100,000, and you can borrow up to $30,000 in repairs. Most of these HUD properties need some repairs. A lot of times those repairs are simply to fix the broken leaks and turn the heating system on. So those repairs could be as little as $5,000. So you could do a 203K up to 30 grand, which you get a contractor and you figure out what you want to fix, what renovations you want to do. That can include appliances, new carpet, new paint, a new back deck, whatever you want to do. So the idea is that if you have this property that's selling at a good price, $100,000, you put $30,000 into it, and then it's worth $160, or it might be $200 with 30 worth $280. So the idea is that you can create some value by fixing the things that are wrong with it. And we know, in general real estate terms, if you do a kitchen or you do a bathroom or you do a roof, that increases value. So buying a HUD property with a 203K in which you put money into it, that'll allow you to create value. The other way that you can finance a HUD property is to do an FHA reserve. And what that means is they'll do a $5,000 that'll be added onto the loan. And that means you can buy the property without the water and without the heat on. Look, most realtors are going to tell you you can't buy a property, you can't finance a property if it doesn't have water and heat on. That is just completely false. That's just a misunderstanding. And I hope that if you call one of the RSA agents and you work with our office, you'll see that we know how to do things that not everybody knows how to do. So you can do the $5,000 escrow reserve, and we'll recommend a finance company to work with you on this. And we're going to recommend a company. It's not all one company. It's not all, hey, we like this particular company, or we like Federal Savings or Envoy Mortgage or Radius Financial. We're going to interview you, and the more we know about your situation, then we're going to give you the advice for the right financing person, the right home inspection person, the way we go from there. So that's kind of the financing piece. The other thing you're going to need to know about the HUD process is the home inspection piece. So I've said to you that, hey, you're going to have to buy it as is, where is, this is the condition it's in. But you don't have to buy it with a blindfold on. You can buy this property fully informed about what you're getting into. And if you do a home inspection, or you look at it several times, or you try to turn the heat on, or you do a pressure test, or you find, we had a property the other day where they put it under agreement, and then all of a sudden the split entry raised ranch, they came back for the home inspection, and there was 6 inches of water in the basement. Well, you would say, any normal seller would say, gee, the basement flooded, I need to renegotiate, we're going to have to fix that. Guess what? HUD's answer is no. You're buying it as is, whether it was as is in the kitchen when you put it under agreement, as is when you close. They don't want to take the liability on. They don't want me as the agent to say, oh, the septic system's perfect or the septic system's broken, because they don't want the liability of me telling you it was good or me telling you it was bad when it wasn't. They want you to buy it as is, and they want you to do all the information to find out what you need to find out about that property. And guess what? We're going to help you do that. We're going to get you with a home inspection. We're going to get you into the property. We're going to open the cabinet doors. We're going to look behind stuff. You're going to be fully informed about what you're buying. But if after you get it under agreement, you find something that scares you to death or you want money off, you're going to have to cancel the contract, get your deposit back, and then rebid the property at a lower price. And that's different than any other property. A lot of times, realtors will put a property under agreement and then say, oh, we're going to renegotiate when you do the home inspection. I have my own views on that. I think a contract should mean what it says and say what it means. You don't necessarily want to always be renegotiating when you do a home inspection. If you've done your job before you make an offer, there shouldn't be any surprises when you do a home inspection. And the same thing can be said of a HUD property. You're going to have a real opportunity to look at the PIR report. You're going to be able to get disclosed everything we know. And we're going to be able to say, look, there's all kinds of stuff going on here. All this stuff can be fixed for 30 grand. Do you want to bid this price? And if you do a home inspection and you're still under that 30 grand that you sort of estimated in your head, then go forward. And if you're not, cancel the contract and rebid it for 5 grand less or whatever the case may be. The risk of doing that would be that if there's a backup offer when you were bidding, that it's going to automatically go to that backup offer. That's something to understand. HUD will take offers, they'll do a backup offer, and when the first guy falls out, they don't necessarily relist the property or give anyone else an opportunity to bid. They go to the next person in line who bid the first time it was on the market. The other thing you got to understand about HUD, HUD gives preference to homeowners. HUD's not out to hurt you, they're out to help you. And I love this line, hi, we're from the government, we're here to help. And as scary as that line can be sometimes, HUD's really trying to do that. They want to do a good job and they want to have a good process. And that these houses that HUD is selling aren't selling because there was something wrong with the house. HUD is selling these houses because someone wasn't able to pay their mortgage. And they are not celebrating that. They're still cheering for the person who lost the house. But the person who lost the house, it was a financial situation, it was a tough situation. Now HUD wants to get a first-time home buyer or an owner-occupant buyer into that house. So HUD does give preference to owner-occupant buyers, and what that means is if someone bids in the first 12 days, they're only going to let you bid as an owner-occupant buyer. So let me talk a little bit about the HUD bidding process. That's also very unique. You don't even fill out a standard form New Hampshire purchase and sale. You don't send a purchase and sale over. You don't have to send a proof of funds yet. You don't have to have a pre-approval letter. HUD assumes that RSA, as the listing broker, as their locally approved local listing broker for this area, and that's an exclusive title that they've given us, we're going to look at the buyer. We're going to say, hey, do you have the wherewithal to buy? We're going to ask them some qualifying questions. And as long as those qualifying questions are answered, we're going to take you at your word. HUD doesn't need you to do all these hoops that you have to jump through before you even bid to know if you're getting a property. So it's real easy to bid on a HUD property. We go to their web portal, we log in, we give them your name, your address, your social security number, and that you're going to do a $1,000 deposit, and you bid. Now, if your bid doesn't get accepted, then you don't have to do anything else. There's no other work that you have to do. So it makes it real easy to bid. But in the first 12 days on their bid portal, they're only going to have the box for owner-occupant. And let me just say this about the box for owner-occupant. If you don't plan on owner-occupying a HUD property, please don't try to buy it. that you will go to jail, and there is a $250,000 fine for misrepresenting that you want to own or occupy a property. I also have an aversion to going to jail. So I would very much like to stress the fact that owner-occupant means owner-occupant. So we want to do the right kind of financing and have the right kind of buyer. So we will bid for you, we'll check the owner-occupant, and basically it just gives you a little leg up on investors that want to buy that. And that's why as an owner-occupant, in order to buy these distressed properties, you'll have to do the escrow reserve loan from FHA for $5,000, or the 203K loan, or you have to have a rich uncle that's going to give you the cash so you can buy it. And to my nieces and nephew, no. All right. Maybe for Kala, maybe. All right, so the financing terms are the same as any other property. It's just like I mentioned, if you wanted to do an FHA 3% down, you'd have to do the 203K loan, because most likely these properties are not going to go FHA. As a general rule, if you're buying a distressed property or a property that's priced way below its market value, there's a reason why it's priced that low. And those reasons or those challenges with that property typically means that it's not going to go straight FHA, it's not going to go VA, it's not going to go 5% down conventional. But if you're willing to do a 203K or an escrow reserve, that would be the same 3% down. For the investor buyer, HUD doesn't dictate what the financing is. That you say, I'm an investor and I'm doing conventional. You can do any conventional loan, but again, you got to make sure it's a conventional loan that the loan officer understands the power and the heat won't be on. And depending on the back end of the underwriting criteria of that particular conventional loan, there are some that allow you to buy it without the water and heat on. There are some local banks like Federal Savings Bank that'll do what they call a portfolio loan, and that means that you're borrowing money from a local bank in the local area, and if you go into that bank and they say, well, you have the financial wherewithal to fix the things that are broken with that, they're going to give you a loan because they believe in the value of the property based on the strength of the appraisal that they're going to do. So the bank, no matter what your type of financing, is also going to have an appraiser appraise the property. The appraiser works for the lender, and on HUD properties, when they come out, it's very important that I explain to that appraiser that the services aren't going to be on, because they typically, it's the industry standard, that heat and water are on. So I like to tell them ahead of time, it's not on, check with the underwriter, make sure you got the right program for this buyer. And sometimes we find out at that point that they got to change the type of loan that they're doing, and sometimes we have to switch lenders in order to do that. But those are all part of the journey, and I think that's another thing, you know, in general about HUD properties, but also about RSA. We sell real estate sales advice, and we're going to give good advice to buyers and to sellers. And whatever the issue is, we're going to give good real estate sales advice. And a lot of times you'd be surprised whether I represent a buyer or whether I represent a seller. They're both customers of RSA, and they're both going to get very similar advice, meaning we don't have advice on how to buy a bank owned that for the seller and advice for a buyer. We don't have advice on septic systems for buyers and advice on septic systems for sellers. Same thing with radon, with lead paint, with inspections. If you're getting good real estate advice, that advice should ring true whether you're a buyer or a seller, because it's about the process. So just like in the HUD process, you're going to have this journey you go down. We're going to help you through that journey, and every single realtor at RSA, well, we can't guarantee a perfectly smooth journey, but we can guarantee you we're going to help you through it, and we can guarantee you there isn't anything we can't overcome. And in one of our next videos, we'll talk about specific situations in real estate and how we overcome a lot of the very unique challenges of buying and selling real estate.